Hey everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider to go over the weekend update into August 5th. And we're going to do this a little differently this time around. And it's going to be a little quicker video than usual. And the reason is because we don't have a ton of, complicated stuff to talk about. We've got some very clean levels to watch. And if those levels break, then, things could get interesting. So we'll start off with SPY. And what's the first thing that I kind of noticed on Friday was one, we did continue to break down through this previous resistance, now failing as support, but we still do have this support below. That was a function of this bottom on December 26th and this bottom on June 3rd. We connect those points, extend them, and that's where we get this possible test below. Now, there's a few things that are interesting on the longer term chart that suggest, this may continue down and possibly even break this longer term ascending wedge. And that's simply just based on this divergence that has clearly materialized. And what's interesting here is you can see that anytime one on the weekly chart, you can see this just massive strong candle down at the top of this resistance area. Literally every single time that's happened once, that's happened twice, and it has now happened for a third time. And you can kind of see every time we've got a hollow candle touching the resistance, and then we've got a very strong candle to the downside. And that's happened one time with a huge move down the next week, two times with a huge move down the next week, three times when we have a huge move down the next week. Who knows? But based on this divergence and just based on the huge volume uptick here on the weekly candle, I'm not too positive this is done. Now, I have kind of been thrown off the last couple weeks. It did look like we were going to absolutely rip last week, and then the market kind of did exactly opposite what I thought, which happens to a lot of people a lot of the time, and that's why trading is so hard. So we'll take what we have at this point, which is a huge engulfing candle down, creating new lows, clearly showing sellers are back in control here. And we just had the Fed news, so that could be the status quo changer for the market to continue down. But at least for the short term, it is interesting to see this green raindrop. But then we do have the hollow candle's red, the raindrop is green. That doesn't always necessarily signal something, but it does show us there is some discrepancies there with the volume-based candle green, the open-close-based candle red, and we'll just have to see what happens here. This is definitely the line that I'm personally watching. This is just solely kind of how I'm trading it. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to. This is just how I'm using the system. These are my lines. And the big thing for me next week is really to create an alert on this line below. That's going to be the main area that I'm watching for a potential breakdown. So in this case, I want to give it a little bit of sensitivity, not too much though. And the sensitivity is essentially just this purple area. The more sensitive, the less sensitive, meaning the more purple area I have, the more I push this to the right, you'll see that this area gets bigger. So for me personally, I want to be alerted within about 51 cents of the selected line. And you can see that right here. So that is essentially how you can do that. I do want to be alerted when the 10-minute candle closes anywhere within this purple area. So I'll know intraday if this is breaking down rather than getting an alert at the end of the day when it was probably too late. And then we'll just make this wedge support, have it expire in 30 days, create the alert. And so now we've got an alert on this area if we do break down. Now, if this really started to break down, and this would be a longer term alert, but we could also put an alert right here on this support line below on the weekly, same thing. Alert me when the 15-minute candle gets anywhere within this area. I don't see this going off next week, but you never know. For me, with this one, I am going to put a little more sensitivity here just because we are still pretty far from this line. So I do want to capture anytime the price action gets anywhere within this purple area. I may even go a little higher here. So if we do continue down anywhere within this purple area where the price closes on the 15-minute candle, I'll be alerted. So we'll do support below, expires in 30 days, the alert's created. So now I'm set up for next week for SPY. For me, I just want to get a gauge of the broad markets. So if this line does break, for me personally, that is going to be an area to watch. Everyone's going to have their own trend lines and their own alerts that they're going to create, but I'm just showing you guys how I personally am using the platform for me going into next week. And just to let everyone know, this is not advice to buy or sell. Simply just a product demo and kind of getting a general idea how you can use the system over the weekend to set up some of these alerts to get ready for next week. But all in all, SPY looks horrible. Volume uptick on the sell side, not divergence materializing, and we've got this big ascending wedge, which generally is a bearish sign. Now, can we bounce here and rip back up? Sure, absolutely, anything's possible. But just based on the longer term time frame here, not a huge fan. But it's interesting. Excuse me. Let me go to the Coinbase price here for Bitcoin. And that's actually a new update we just recently did this week. So for example, instead of just looking at an aggregated price for Bitcoin, we do now have individual exchanges. You'll see here that we're looking at the Coinbase Pro price. And Bitcoin is like the opposite of SPY last week. We've got a huge move to the upside. The weekly candle looks literally opposite of SPY. And it's interesting, is that money from SPY flowing into Bitcoin? Probably not, because that's a lot of money. But, it is interesting to see how literally this candle is the exact opposite of SPY's candle. And so, is Bitcoin coming back into the picture? We've got kind of this tweezer bottom looking weekly candle, breaking new highs. Anything can happen here. It's Bitcoin. It's just Bitcoin. That's all I can say about that. But if we do look at the volume and kind of look where the volume is holding, notice how this big block of volume is actually, all of that volume was from around 10.3 up to 13.8. So we still have a lot of volume holding in this general area, which is going to act as like a volume for supply, a vacuum for supply, not volume. And what I mean by that is, as sellers dry up from holding up here, there's some people who stopped out, but those who are still holding at these areas up here, the supply is eventually going to dry up down here, which it looks like it has, and then we could see a continuation up. Now, on top of having these individual exchange prices, notice that we can actually create our own fib levels now. So this has been a big one for a lot of people. Let's say we want to capture this measured move down to this measured move. We can easily do that, and you can see very quickly that we are actually right at this 38.2% fib level here. Tested it perfectly, had a little bit of a pullback, and we'll just have to see if that continues up. Now, let's say that it does break through. I'm going to create an alert here to let me know that. So I'll do breakthrough. I'll do the sensitivity a little lighter here, and I'll be alerted on the 30-minute candle, fib level 38.382, and let's just do 30 days. So now, if we do break through this previous area, which we false broke out before, but this will be a crucial area for me to watch because we found resistance once, twice, and this would be the third time. So anytime this price action breaks through this area, that's when I will be alerted. So, it's the weekend. Bitcoin likes to move on the weekend when the broad markets are closed. In this case, it looks like that move is to the upside. But, this is still a crucial level to break. So this is something I'm really looking at, and I'll not have to stare at the screen all day. I'll just be alerted anytime this goes off. And it seems to me, from my experience so far using these alerts, for Bitcoin at least, I generally get this in the middle of the night because that's when Bitcoin seems to be making its big moves. But that's just me. I personally don't really trade crypto, but I love to watch it. And I love to, just see what all the fuss is about on Twitter. I personally like my sleep, so that's kind of why I don't like to trade crypto. I like the fact that I can trade during the week, have a break on the weekend, and get back to it on Monday morning. Everyone's got their own, different strategies. Some people like to hodl, and, hodling does not include you having to wake up in the middle of the night to see how your position's doing. At that point, you're just holding for the long term. So there's a bunch of ways to play crypto, and everyone's going to have their own style. This is personally kind of what I'm seeing, this huge weekly move up. Volume starting to come aggregate on the upside of these daily candles here near the high of the day. And so we'll see if this breaks. If not, we could pull back, let's say down to the 20 or 10,200 area. And what I'll do here is literally just do the same thing, create an alert for a breakthrough touch or a bounce here, move my sensitivity to the right a little bit, and have this also alert me on the 30-minute candle. And the reason why the 30-minute candle is like this for the confirmation candles on raindrops, not raindrops, crypto or Forex, is because we have a different length of time that we have to calculate in the back end. So the confirmation candles are a little higher. In this case, the lowest you can go is 30 minutes. And we'll do the same thing, right? We'll do 30 days, create alert. So anytime the price action breaks through these two areas, I'm going to know it's time to look at the chart again without me having to stare at the chart all day looking to see which one breaks first. So thank you so much for listening in. Hope everyone finds this useful, not only to check out the markets into next week. Just keep in mind this is all solely my opinion and just kind of what I'm looking at, but also to see how TrendSpider works. There's some really cool features on here that you can really take advantage of to help the system really do some of the work for you. This isn't here to replace what you're doing by hand. It's here to make the whole process more efficient. So rather than you having to stare at the chart all day, you create these alerts, you create these multi-factor alerts. You let the system look for these conditions or these price levels that you want to see tested. You set the alert, and then you let the system do the hard work. You don't have to stare at the chart. You have other things to do all day. So that's our value proposition, really making the whole process more efficient, scaling the process of technical analysis, if you will. And thank you so much for listening in again. Hope you all have a great weekend, and we will be back at it next weekend with another video. Have a great one.